Right, so now I'm here with Paul Hallen, Global Head of Retina and Glaucoma at Alcon. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
My pleasure.
And Paul, we're talking about trends in the industry. And it happens that a trend is a microphone that doesn't work, that's very colorful and says Pi on it.
Yes.
So we're going to use it even though we're mic'd up. So I'm just going to say, hi there, Paul. Tell me about trends in the industry.
Trends in the industry. Well,
and here's the mic for you.
I think some of the most exciting things are in the area of visualization. There's a lot of great diagnostics out there, but not only in the office, but in the operating room. There's Ingenuity 3D.
Yeah.
There's a symposium today. There must have been about 500 people in there. Some of the best surgeons in the world presenting, like Dr. Rizzo, Khalid Sabati, Marco Mayo. Just fantastic videos showing a lot of great technology in 3D.
Yeah, great. So over the years, we've been involved with some of your work with Ingenuity, just in terms of getting the message out there. But it seems like one of those devices which is so innovative, it must take time for general acceptance worldwide. So how do you get doctors to get over that kind of learning curve, or at least the curve of acceptance of this great new technology?
Yeah, I think with most new technologies, you've got to overcome the misconceptions. So they need to try it. Also, you can take a base technology or a platform like 3D visualization and improve it. And as you do that, you're getting rid of the barriers to adoption at the same time as you're teaching them about the value. Also, we start studying the technology in a very scientific way. So for example, we've found out since we purchased it, you can use much lower light levels than previously needed with the microscope.
Yeah.
So say Constellation, maybe using 60-70% of full xenon illumination. Now we can use it around 20, 18.
Right. And
so that's great for the patient's eye. So that's an inherent feature that we discovered and then kind of optimized where you could use it. Further, Ingenuity has 5 times the depth of field of the best microscope out there.
Yeah.
So things are in focus, and that's important in retina surgery. And the magnification is about 50% more. When you're doing macular work, that's tremendous. So if there were an analog microscope that had that kind of performance, everyone would buy it. Now that it's a different technology, they need to get comfortable with it. And then there's other things we're doing in terms of integration we can talk about too.
That's great. And I remember it was a year or so ago, you had sent me an email about data fusion.
Yes.
And how that was really going to be the next step in Ingenuity. Now that we're a year out, is it still data fusion that's going to be cutting edge, or other parts of Ingenuity?
I think both.
Yeah.
But let's talk about data fusion. So created that term along with the help of Michael Carmone, is we were looking for a bucket, if you will, of technologies that would fit into that. Some that we know about, some that we didn't know about yet. And it's anything other than the primary image. So that can be like the parameters that we now have in the 1.3 software from the Constellation on the Ingenuity screen. And the integration of being able to program a certain mode, like vitrectomy, to maybe have a blue tint and be inverted.
Yeah.
And then other modes having different colors and different inversion statuses. So we can program those so you only have to do them one time. Helps with the ease of use. So that integration of data fusion is important. Beyond that, we're going to integrate the aura for cataract surgery. So wavefront aberrometry, we're integrating the Centurion parameters, and this will continue. So the name data fusion is anything other than the primary image. Could be an endoscopic image, but we also don't know what they all are. That's why we wanted a generalized bucket that we just put everything into and just say, for cornea it's going to be one thing, for glaucoma another, for retina, and for cataract. So it's a very convenient way of kind of keeping our innovation options open without having to really talk about so many things.
Yeah. And Paul, I mentioned this is a nifty microphone here. You turn it around, it becomes a cake microphone.
Yes.
Now the thing is, Cake is our anterior segment magazine, and since you mentioned glaucoma, I remember, again, it was some years ago, you were using Ingenuity at that time to display SiPass, which I understand, it's not available at the moment, but still, it seems like Ingenuity can cross segments from the posterior to the anterior segment. So when we get into ESCRS next week, Ingenuity is still kind of relevant for that audience?
Yeah, we basically incubated it in Retina to understand it and optimize it, especially for procedures that are faster moving.
Yeah.
So we have much lower latency than we had when we first started. And you're right, for cataract surgery is now very viable based on the reduced latency and then the integration that I previously talked about. For glaucoma, the image of the angle is tremendous, and that's not just for SiPass, that's for any angle-based mixed device. So I think that if you go to the Alcon booth, you'll see it being used for a number of things. But really, those 4 major areas for sure: glaucoma, cataract, cornea, and of course retina. It's going to really become the standard. And I think the analog microscope is going to see the same fate as Kodak film. It's death by digital camera.
Huh. Well, we've talked so much about Ingenuity, and even though it's a commercial application for you, I figure that, sitting up there sort of at the head of Alcon in the retina space and in glaucoma, you must have a broad view of innovation coming down the pike. We've heard a lot of things at the Ophthalmology Futures the other day. There were things about, robotic medicine at that point. But when you stare out there into 2021 and beyond, what do you see?
I think robotics are at the beginning phase, but I have an open mind towards robotics. I was on a robotics panel earlier this week, and it's with Ingenuity. It's actually a very good combination. So Precise and other robotics companies, they have an opportunity to do things that we haven't done before. At the same time, the guidance technologies are getting better. OCT, and particularly OCTA, being able to guide the robot.
Yeah.
And so that visualization on an Ingenuity and using other OCTs, I think, are enabling technologies. I think the robots themselves are ready for prime time, but are the enabling technologies going to allow it to be safe and effective? And then what's the compelling reason? Is it lack of surgical capability, so scaling? Is it efficiency? Really, what is it?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to find some applications in the future, and the early work by Precise, they may ultimately be the winner, and maybe other entries, but everybody benefits.
That's great. As far as the surgical space goes, there are a lot of laser companies out there that are sort of trying to get into the mix of wet AMD therapy, because anti-VEGFs are still sort of holding that space down pretty tight. What does Alcon see in terms of that area? Anything of note?
Yeah, I probably can't get into some of the things that we're doing since we're a public company now as of April 9th. I could speculate on some of the other companies out there.
Yeah.
An interesting one is Lumithera. So I have no affiliation with them, but they've got some good basic science behind light therapy, photobiomodulation. So that's really interesting to be able to dose a dry AMD patient. There's no other therapies out there, and does it really work? So, stimulating the mitochondria and making sure there's right energy and oxygenation levels is very interesting. But again, these things are early, and it's hard to tell what's actually going to work. I think the anti-VEGF drugs out there still are really the lead. And then the other thing that's really happening are these gene therapies, Regenix Bio, Nightstar, Spark Therapeutics. They're really groundbreaking and could play into robotics and Ingenuity as well.
Yeah, there were a couple false steps I remember. I don't remember how much of a false step there was, but years ago, Acucella started getting into the space, and it didn't pan out commercially, at least at that time. Is dry AMD almost like the holy grail of the space, similar to the way presbyopia correction is the holy grail of the anterior segment?
Yeah, I think so. The success of the anti-VEGF therapies in wet AMD is going to motivate people to try to come up with those therapies for dry AMD.
Yeah.
And Apellis is out there. Genentech has done some work there. So who is going to be successful, or even a Lumithera? Who knows? But I like the idea that they're going after the disease And if someone is successful, then everybody wins. So
That's great. And a final question, very important. Would you recommend any tailors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Well, most of the tailors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area actually come from Hong Kong. I get these emails all the time. So, but I just, I'm not as high-level couture as you. I just go to Nordstrom's.
All right.
In fact, I usually just order them with my phone, and they show up and get them tailored. So, great question.
Well, there you have it. Hong Kong tailors in Texas. Thanks for being with us, Paul.
You're welcome.
All right. All the best. Cheers.